Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Today we are at Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager. It appears we're in the council chambers, but really we're at the police department. That is who is hosting us today. So if Police Chief Dan Doyle could come up, he'll tell us a little bit about the facility and what his department does. And we don't have to be awkwardly close this time. Yeah. We have an extra mic, so.
Yeah, not like that. Yeah. Are we on? Yeah. Welcome to the police department. Pleasure to have you here. I do want to let you know when we complete this, we are going to offer up tours of the police department after this. So one thing I'll ask everybody, have your driver's license ready. We're going to run a warrant check on everybody before we leave. So anybody that darts out the door before this is over, we'll be waiting. But no, welcome to the police department. Here at this facility, this building was, the construction was completed in 1994. So we've been in the building for about 25 years now. We house the 911 dispatch center as well as a full-time jail here. So we're going to give you a tour of all that, and I know the mayor's got some interesting facts that he can tell you about our jail and dispatch center. So with that, welcome to the police department. We're really excited to have all of you here. And again, my officers and staff will be ready to answer any questions you may have for us during the tour. So with that, again, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you again for hosting us. We appreciate it. All right, we're going to get right into it. Road construction. I know it's always the hot topic on everyone's mind. So Lake Havasu Avenue is coming together fairly nicely. You'll notice if you've been down in that area that most of the area has at least some pavement down there. There's still an intersection that doesn't have full pavement, but crews are working on that area diligently. They are on schedule, and it will be done the week before Memorial Day. So at this point, they're focusing a lot on the medians, which is the safety corridor of this project. And then they'll get the additional asphalt put down in that area, and then it will open back up. When it opens back up, this has new lighting technology. So the lighting technology that is built in is geared to allow free flow traffic from the highway onto the Lake Havasu Avenue corridor. So there'll be some lighting technology that'll help make that a little bit more efficient when it goes. So once we turn on and everything goes, it is a computer system, so bear with us as that gets adjusted and calibrated correctly. But that is the intent, and we're working on that. Again, the very week before Memorial Day, that project will be done. I'd like to remind people a little bit about the project. It seems like it's been going on forever, but it really didn't start until after the first of the year. Again, it's on schedule, and we also had a lot of rain events this winter. We forget about that living in the desert, but we have had a lot of rain events that happen, and for the contractors to remain on schedule is a great thing. So I know it's very frustrating and change is hard, but we appreciate your patience as we make these roadways safer and have new asphalt on that. In addition to Lake Havasu Avenue, we also started Swanson Avenue this week. And so crews are down on Swanson Avenue, basically from Acoma to Scott Drive. It's a 7/10 of a mile area. And crews are working on, it started as an asphalt preservation project. So the asphalt in that area is failing. And through a federal grant, we were able to get funding to do this stretch of the roadway. But there are some caveats from the federal government that we had to do, which were pedestrian pathways, so a multi-use path and a bike path. And so it's going to appear when the project is done that we have a bike path or a multi-use path that goes to nowhere. But eventually, when additional funding sources are available, we will continue the project down Swanson as it connects into the rest of our trail system. Another point of reference is, if you don't use our trail system, we do have a pretty significant trail system on Pima Wash that runs from Acoma down to Rotary Park. This multi-use path and bike path will connect into that area. So it does have some connectivity and was planned for that. So the highlights for this area is because of the multi-use path and the bike path, the lanes are going to get skinnier. And when lanes get skinnier, traffic goes slower, which is the goal in this area. So we want to make sure that folks can get around our community safely, but this is a traffic calming measure that helps ensure some of those things are achieved. Again, because it is federal funding, we had to put in the multi-use path and the bike lane, which is prohibiting street side parking. And that is causing a little bit of concern for some businesses in that area. Jess and his team continue to work with those businesses to try and mitigate it as best as they can. You might have read something about it in the paper today, but we are working with those. And again, change is difficult, and this project was planned in 2011, was it, Jess?
2011, yeah.
So 2011 is when it was planned, and that's how long this cycle takes when you are working with grant funding and grant funding agencies. So this project will be administered by ADOT, Arizona Department of Transportation. So they will be the point person. So again, it might be a bit awkward on communication and things, but our team here at the city is working really hard with ADOT and with the MPO to get the correct information out to the citizens about this. And we're hoping that this project will be done within 4 to 6 months. And so right around the fall, this project on Swanson Avenue will be done. We also are doing the chip seal program right now. This is our final roadway project we have to talk about. So chip sealing is happening throughout the community in key areas. What our goal is to do about 10% roughly of our streets a year in some sort of maintenance fashion. And chip seal is the most affordable option of those to achieve the threshold of 10%. We're a little shy this year of hitting 10%, but that's kind of what we try to do. So before I became mayor, I hated chip seal just as much as everyone else hates chip seal. And now that I'm mayor, chip seal is actually not such a bad thing. It's pretty affordable as far as things go about roadway maintenance. It's very inconvenient for a 2-week stretch while the pebbles are still fresh and getting thrown up and hitting your car and getting your cars dirty. But it really is a pretty affordable way to maintain our roadway system without having to increase taxes and those types of things. So again, not ideal, but it does work. And the reason why that we're doing it right now is the timing. It's weather dependent on temperature, and so this is the ideal window to do that. So of course we wouldn't want to do it when we have Lake Havasu all torn up and Swanson all torn up, but some of the way these contracts and the funding came available is how some of this timing happened. But some good news to report on the chip sealing is we did introduce some new technologies this year. So there is in certain areas where appropriate a micro seal a component that is going to be put on some of the roadways, which prevents the rocks from getting all over the place and prevents having to do chip seal in that area. And then also some areas with slurry seal, mostly in areas that have tight turn radiuses. So, cul-de-sacs, those types of things where you're making a tight turn and all the pebbles get kicked up and kind of creates divots, if you will. So we are trying some new technologies that if they work appropriately and remain cost effective, we can incorporate more of those into our 10% plan a year to maintain our roadways as time progresses. So that's a roadway update, unless you have anything to add, Jess.
No, that's a really good summary of the projects going on. Chip seal, we're going to be doing that for about next 6 weeks or so. And yeah, it's not the most ideal situation now when it's being applied, but I think it puts the city in a situation where we have good roads moving forward. A similar situation, or a dissimilar situation, is what look up in Kingman that's happening right now. They didn't do the pavement preservation projects. They didn't do the chip seal and those things to keep the roads in good condition moving forward. Now they're in a situation where they're talking about total reconstruction of their roads. They're talking about raising taxes and trying to find other revenue streams. Where we're able to do it for a little less than $2 a square yard, they're talking about reconstruction of roads, but it's costs upwards of $18 to $20 per square yard. So this type of maintenance right now preserves our roads, puts us in good shape, and then allows us to be established for future years.
So we do get folks to tell us a lot, fix the roads. And then we fix the roads, and everyone's like, it takes too long, and it's making my commute too hard. So again, we appreciate your patience on all this. Some of these things we'll start wrapping up, but we're going to continue to focus on the roads, small chunks at a time. And again, drive safely out there, and thank you for your patience throughout that process.
One last thing too, if you go on the city's website, you can see the chip seal schedule is available on the website, so you'll know which roads are being chip sealed in advance. If it's in your neighborhood, you'll get a door hanger at least once, if not twice, to let you know that your road in front of your house will be chip sealed. So and then contact us if you have questions. But we're trying to get as much word out as possible in advance so people understand where these things are. And so if you want to avoid these areas, you can. But it's kind of a maze, but we appreciate your patience.
This last week we had our CIP budget hearing. It's the first budget hearing that we have. It was the first opportunity that Jess, our city manager, and his team were able to address city council on capital improvement projects for the city. So what is significant this year in the plan is it's Jess and his team submitted a fully funded CIP, which is something that is a fairly new strategy for us. So what fully funded means is it's a 5-year CIP outlook that identifies funding sources that can actually allow these projects to come to fruition. In the past, the strategy that was used is a big number of projects were proposed and a certain pot of money was proposed. So basically whoever from city staff, so basically from a contract perspective, city staff and project manager, whoever got to the money first and got it before council is what project got forward. So they were all of them were priorities, but whoever got to the money first is how those projects went through, which isn't the most ideal way to do that. So we applaud Jess and his team for coming forward with a fully funded CIP program that we can continue to invest in the capital infrastructure of our city. Some of the highlights of it, a lot of it is really boring stuff like streets and sewer infrastructure and things underground that are very, very important when you turn on your water and you flush your toilet, but we don't think about it otherwise. But a lot of those projects that were in the wastewater and water category. But a couple of highlights that did come out that are a little bit more fun for citizens is there is a proposal to upgrade Dick Samp Park. Dick Samp Park is over on the north end of town and is home to a Little League field and also the initial stages of pickleball. And we were able to identify funding sources, and also through a donation from the Pickleball Association, they have contributed money to the project to increase the pickleball fields by, is it 8?
8 courts.
Yeah, 8 more courts. So that'll give 12 of the 16 courts of the full master plan for pickleball out at Dick Samp Park. But it also allows us to put in a parking lot and expand parking out at Dick Samp Park, which if you don't use Dick Samp Park, you'd be like, why spend the money on a parking lot? If you use Dick Samp Park, you'd be like, thank goodness we have more parking. There's not enough parking out there. So there's going to be parking that'll take care of our Little League folks that actually are having challenges right now. They're in season, and they send us updates with photos of cars all over the place. And so that'll be a really nice enhancement for the Dick Samp Park. A couple of other highlights of the CIP is Jess is proposing to have a dedicated funding source for the CIP going forward. So what that means is that we can budget and have some long-range planning conversations both at the staff level and then at the policy level on how we can continue to invest in our infrastructure and make sure that we're saving our taxpayers as much money as possible through the process. And Jess has identified, and the council has given preliminary approval to use construction sales tax as that mechanism. I'll let Jess talk a little bit about why that strategy and what that might look like.
So yeah, thank you, Mayor. We're looking at dedicated revenue stream for our capital improvement projects. That's our CIP, and for all the general funds, so the parks, police, fire, those types of projects that are out there. Right now, the city collects about $2.2 million per year in construction sales tax. So we utilize those funds for those types of projects. Some years, if we spend 1.5 in one year, then we can carry over the 700,000 and do something for maybe 2.9 the following year. That allows us to accomplish a few things. So we have a consistent, steady source. We can identify the funding first, and then look at what projects we can accomplish with those dollars. Allows us to be a little bit more fiscally responsible in terms of working within our means and our resources. Also allows us to take a look at some of the operating needs of our day-to-day needs within the city. For example, this year, police and fire. Everyone's always interested about those services for obvious reasons. It's been a couple years since the city purchased a patrol car for police. So we're looking at doing some of those within the budget this year. Fire. We're buying tools and resources and equipment like fire hoses and turnout gear, and allowing our personnel in fire to receive the training that we cut back in previous years. So with that dedicated revenue stream, we're able to identify what the funds are. We can identify some projects moving forward, but then opens up the ability for us to spend some dollars on the day-to-day activities within the different departments. Tying it to the construction sales tax, it was strategic. Our economies dip and up and down depending on the activity. If we tie it to construction sales tax, that means the better our local economy is, the more construction happening within the community. That means we have more dollars to spend on projects, one-time projects throughout the community. And if times are tough and construction dwindles in the community, then those dollars go down, and then we're not looking at immediate cuts for ongoing operations that affect the services that we take for granted, and rightfully so, on a day-to-day basis.
Very good. And another strategy of the CIP project is Council made it clear during the CIP work session that we want to make sure we take care of the infrastructure we have today. So rather than going out and purchasing or buying new things, so building a new park or building a park enhancement or those types of things, make sure that we're taking care of the parks we have now. Some of those things that you can actually realize and see right now is down in Rotary Park. We're expanding the bathrooms. For those citizens that use the Rotary Park area, know that those bathrooms are less than adequate for the need and the use that we get down there. And also at London Bridge Beach, those bathrooms are being expanded to take care of the needs. So those are just a few examples of things that we can do to our current infrastructure. The partnership out at Dick Sand Park that I talked about earlier is another example. It's a beautiful Little League field. It has great pickleball courts, but inadequate parking. And so it's now we're able to invest some money into there. So we really want to take care of what we already have as a community, while still being open-minded to the innovation that our citizens bring to us every single day. So every single day we have folks in either my office or Jess's office with some sort of innovation that they would like to do or a passion that they have. And so we want to be able to be open-minded to some of those things that make sense for our community and make sense for our citizens as a whole. But it allows us with some of these dedicated funding sources for us to have real conversations that continue on past election cycles and past city manager tenures. And I mean, it's long-range planning is what we will really want to do to make sure that Lake Havasu City always has its best foot forward. So dovetailing on our CIP work session, our next budget work session is on May 16th. It's a Thursday. It's at 9 a.m. It's here in the council chambers, and that's where staff, Jess and his staff will address council on the operating budget. So the overall budget. We've talked about the capital improvement stuff. Now the day-to-day budget is what will be presented there. A lot of folks ask, how come we have the budget work sessions when I'm at work? It's during the day, and how can I get there, and how can I be a part of it? And so we try to do outreach as much as possible, but we bring all of the city team and manpower together during these sessions. So it makes sense from a financial standpoint for all of us as taxpayers to have them here during the regular work hours, because it's the entire team. It's not just the executive team that's here. It's the entire team that's here. They are televised, and then we do outreach like we're doing today, where we have these conversations and we get in front of groups and organizations and citizens so we can get your feedback and hear what is important to you. And then, of course, they're open to the public as well. So if you can squeeze out time to be here, that's great and encouraged, so we can get your feedback during that process too. But so we'll know more about that, and we'll give you an update at our next Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager on kind of the conversations that the council had with staff based on that budget work session. As part of the budget work session, Jess is proposing a couple of things in there. One is the positional analysis, which it comes from the direction of council from last year about wages and what we pay city staff across all departments. A lot of it was highlighted through social media and the newspaper, particularly in public safety, but it really is an issue that we have across all departments. So Jess, if you want to talk just a little bit about what that positional analysis means and what we hope to get out of it.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Positional analysis study is something that we're looking at doing. We had the RFP, or our ability to solicit the bids, bring a consultant in to help us with that effort. I just went out this week, so we're hoping to get the kickoff for this study to take place in July. Obviously, with council approval through the budget process. But that's going to allow us to accomplish a few different things. And The one that everybody kind of focuses on is the compensation component of it, and that's going to be that's part of it. But that's 1/3 of what we're talking about here, and we're going to be looking at identifying our comparable communities across Arizona, those that are in direct comparison in population, economy, budget size, those types of comparable communities that are out there, and then looking at our positions and comparing those positions through the market with our comparable communities. Right now, we're comparing some of our positions to cities like Chandler and Tempe, and then also as well as Kingman and so forth. But so we're going to rein that in a little bit, take a look at what our comparable communities are, and then be able to look at what our, from a recruiting perspective, it's what our competition is, right? So if we're trying to attract the best and brightest employees to provide services to our residents, we want to do so in a way that makes sense with regards to the market. We want to be offering a wage that we're competitive with, you know, the other communities that are out there, the Prescotts and the Flagstaffs, you know, to a certain degree that are out there. So that's going to allow us to accomplish that. But we're also, right now we have it's been more than a few years since the city did anything along this type of effort. In that time, we have a lot of employees within the organization that have a job title that says one thing, and they have job duties that say another thing. And that's very, very typical throughout the organization. So that's part of this process that I'm most excited about, is to go through, identify the job duties for each of our employees, and then tie a job title to it, and then we'll use that obviously to look at the market. So try to bring in and realign our job titles with our duties. And then finally, another component of the study is going to be looking at our compensation structure as a whole. Right now we have a step plan. So every year our employees receive a adjustment. As long as they're not capped out, they receive an adjustment through the step, and every employee gets the same percentage that based on that step that they get throughout the year. I'll be recommending a change in that process, and be looking at more of a merit-based compensation plan. So we want to identify the employees in the organization that go above and beyond in service delivery and providing excellent customer service to the residents. Those employees should be compensated on as far as the annual increases and as part of their raises, if you will, should be compensated at a different level than those that don't. So if we have an employee that's running circles around another employee, well, that one that's running circles should be compensated to a better degree. We look at them in terms of, I like to call them the clock punchers versus the rock stars, and we want to identify the rock stars and thank them for their service and provide them with the motivation to keep on going and providing that excellent service to our residents. So it's going to be a lot, probably about a 6-month process. We've done some things in drafting this proposed budget for this year that's going to allow us to implement the findings of that study once it's completed in next year's budget.
Excellent. And then the other thing that we've talked about in previous coffees with the mayor and city manager is the irrigation and drainage district. It's the IDD, and it's set to expire in 2023. And so what the IDD does, it was the first government that set up for Lake Havasu City. It was what Robert McCulloch used to build the infrastructure, the original infrastructure for our community. What it still does today is it's a property tax on all of our property tax bills at a flat rate by acreage, and it brings in about $5.7 million to the water and wastewater budget. And what that does is that's what we use to operate the water and wastewater system, in addition to the rates that we pay as users of the system. So that $5.7 million is essential to provide the service. And so as a community, we need to have the discussion, and we're starting the discussion just like we are today, just by bringing it up and getting IDD and irrigation and drainage district at the top of everyone's mind and vocabulary. So when we're having these conversations, we know what way to move forward in the best interest of all of the citizens. So that $5.7 million would need to be replaced somehow. And does it make most sense that we increase rates and everyone pays a little bit more each month to offset that $5.7 million? Does it make more sense to have a new water district, if you will, that the voters vote in, that would allow a similar mechanism to go into place, where we would have a property tax each year that would go into the system? Does it make sense, our original water boundary for Lake Havasu City is it doesn't incorporate all of our service areas now that the community has grown. So there's certain areas in our community that are not in the IDD. It doesn't make sense to expand a district and then everybody pays less than they're paying now on their property taxes, but we still pay it on the property taxes. What the city needs is we just need to replace the 5.7 million. That's essential for providing and delivering that service. And so we just need to have those discussions. And as part of that, Jess is proposing in this upcoming budget, it's a big tongue twister, so I'll let you describe it.
It's a water and wastewater rate study.
Yeah, too many W's at once. Yeah.
Or rate study.
Yeah.
But part of that process is going to be what the mayor that you're discussing now is identifying options. It's my role and staff's role in this process to identify as many options as possible, so we can have those discussions with the public, with council, and develop the best plan moving forward. As he indicated, right now the IDD through your property tax bill. If you look at the line item on there, it'll say IDD if you live within the district, which 95% of Havasu residents do, approximately. And so that's contained within your property tax bill. That brings in $5.7 million, allows us to provide water service to Lake Havasu as a whole. We don't want to increase that number. What we're looking at is trying to break even on it. So IDD goes away. How are we going to make up for those dollars that are used right now to provide water service, to be able to wash the dishes and take showers in the morning, those types of things. So.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, I was like, why is the IDD going away? So I'll explain that just a little bit. When the voters voted to incorporate Lake Havasu City in 1978, as part of that measure, the IDD was supposed to go away. Because again, that was the first government entity, if you will, for Lake Havasu City when Robert McCulloch set our community up. When we voted to incorporate in 78, the IDD then was set to expire once the debt that the IDD had acquired to put in the infrastructure was paid off. And so there was some things that prior councils did that refinanced the debt and those types of things, but now the debt is set to expire in 2023. And so the will of the voters from 1978 will be seen and the IDD will expire. So just to give you some backstory of, why are we even talking about this and why can't it just go on as it is today? It's because we are mandated by the will of the voters and we will make that happen. But again, we just have to have the conversation on what do we want as citizens of our community and how do we want to pay for our water infrastructure and wastewater infrastructure. So we'll see some of those results that are coming out through this next budget. So Jess and myself joined Jerry. So Jerry, if you could stand up real quick. Jerry is an unsung hero of the city. Jerry Bracamani is our assistant, so she works with Jess and myself and also the city council, and she coordinates all 8 of our schedules, make sure we're all where we're supposed to be, when we need to be there, and we have all of the information we need when we're there. Mm-hmm. But she also is our coordinator for our Havasu Youth Advisory Council, which is a council of youth that represent Lake Havasu City and advise City Council on matters of importance to our youth. So Jess and I were able to join Jerry and our Havasu Youth Advisory Council on Wednesday in Phoenix, where Lake Havasu City Youth Council took first place in the democracy competition. It was sponsored by the Center for Future of Arizona. And what their project was to address mental health issues within our community and specifically in rural communities. And what their project looked like to all of us citizens of Lake Havasu City is they partnered with the Havasu Community Health Foundation, and they brought in a mental health expert to speak and have a town hall on mental health issues and how do we address them and how can we ensure that youth have access to services. They also worked alongside with #YouMatter, which is a suicide prevention network that works within our community. And brought all those pieces together. So congratulations, Jerry, and thank you for all your hard work. Mm-hmm. None of that would be possible without her. Not only is she coordinating all of our schedules, trying and wrangle the youth together and their busy schedules, and she gets everyone where they need to be. So great job.
Herding cats, right?
Yeah, for sure. So. The other thing that's going on right now, and we'll probably start seeing some things in the newspaper, is some discussions about our courts and what's happening with our court system. So Lake Havasu City has a consolidated court, which means that we work in partnership with the other courts within our region, particularly the Justice Court and the Superior Court. So we have the court complex out on College Drive that we all know as the courthouse. Unless you're involved in the legal system somehow, you might not know that there's different courts that you go to. So there's different courts based on what offenses might be or what you might be doing within the system. But our courts, our caseload has increased. And with our population increase, obviously with that comes increased offenses that have to go through the system and somehow. So we're having some space concerns out there. We're having some operational stuff that's going on there. And Magistrate Judge Mitch Kalali talked to the City Council at our City Council planning session in January to talk about the future of the consolidated court system and potentially introduce the idea of deconsolidating the court system and what that might look like, and kind of gave a broad brush of what that might mean to the constituents of Lake Havasu City. We have, it's basically the partners, the government partners in this are the City of Lake Havasu and the county, Mojave County. And so we have shared constituents that it makes sense to have a consolidated court in some respects, and it doesn't make sense in other respects. And so, so that was a real broad brush. But then as the months have gone on, it seems that deconsolidation might make the most sense. And so things seem to be going pretty quick in that arena. And discussions are happening really at Jess and Mitch's level to how we can best provide the services that we're required to provide within the legal system and through the courts, and also be good stewards of the taxpayers. And so Jess, if you want to add a little bit about some of the conversations that are ongoing to kind of address some of these concerns.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're talking about a consolidated court, which means all those functions, whether it's Superior Court, civil, criminal. If you have any type of a court issue, whether it's criminal or civil or otherwise, you're going to one building right now, and that's we call that the consolidated court. That's a relationship that's existed with the county since mid to early 2000s. And as far as the agreement that we're working off right now, caseloads are increasing. We're busting at the seams. So we're looking at trying to identify different options to deconsolidate, which would be to separate the city's court services from the county court services. First and foremost, we're most interested in making sure that service delivery isn't impacted. It's very convenient right now, but we also have to look at our relationship with the county. The caseload is increasing. The city's share of those dollars to be spent on the increase in workload. We're spending more dollars on it. The county is not. So we're having conversations on how we can move forward with service delivery, but also, I mean, it's our jobs as the stewards for the city to make sure that we're spending taxpayer dollars wisely, and so we're having some conversations to make sure that that does take place. So there'll be a few conversations over the next couple of weeks. Many have already taken place, but we'll see this probably discussed at the county and city level through the budget process and through the respective board and council meetings over the next few weeks. So.
Excellent. All right, so we're now to the part of the program where we open it up to you, and we ask you to share any questions you may have. We'll start with Vice Mayor David Lane.
Not a question, but before we get started on the questions, could you briefly touch on Census 2020 and
Yes.
how much that affects our tax dollar?
Yes.
We have a plant in the audience, obviously.
Yeah, started right out. Yeah, so Vice Mayor Lane was reminding us about the Census 2020 that'll be coming out. So the census, for some reason, when they send out the census forms or a census person knocks on your door, people get scared to answer the questions. But the questions, what they mean in real use for us is it talks about the population of your community. And all federal shared and state shared revenues are predicated on your population numbers for your community. So what does that mean? If you are working and you pay income taxes, those are paid to the state, and then the state distributes those to the cities and towns within the state of Arizona based on your population. When you pay or pump your gas, you're paying taxes on each gallon you pump. The state collects those taxes and then distributes them back into the communities based on the population of those communities. So when the census comes out, and we'll be hearing a lot about it, we'll be putting together a group of citizens to help champion this. When the census comes out for 2020, which is when it's updated, we encourage everybody to fill out their census forms and turn it in. And the information is confidential. I think it's, is it 50 years, I think I heard, that they don't release it? 60
Yeah,
years.
yeah,
So
yeah.
60 years before we'll be able to get to see what boxes you checked on how many bathrooms you have in your home. So if you could fill out the form, it really is very, very vital to us. We're already paying those monies as taxpayers of the great state of Arizona and the city of Lake Havasu. We just need to make sure they're coming back to your respective community so that we can provide the services that you desire. So that's public safety and water and roads and parks and everything that we desire as citizens of our community. We're already paying it. We just need to make sure that it's coming back here based on population. One of the challenges that we're going to have for Lake Havasu City is we do have a population of folks that love Lake Havasu City, and they spend 6, 7, 8 months here in Lake Havasu City, but their grandkids or their family might be somewhere else, and that's what they call home. And so they might use the census form at home, and that home in Wisconsin or Minnesota gets their revenues, and we don't get counted for here. So if you live in Lake Havasu City for 6 months and 1 day, fill out your census form here, so that way that we get we have the money that we're already paying redistributed back up to Lake Havasu City to provide those services. So it'll be very, very important that we get the word out, and I call all of you my faithful, so please go and talk to all of your friends. All of you, you're the educated folks that get to tell all of your family, friends, what's going on in the city. So if you could please share with them the importance and the political side of the census form of are you a citizen of the U.S. and how many bathrooms do you have in your home and some of those types of things. That's not what we're interested in. We're interested in being counted as a resident of our community, so we get what we're already paying redistributed back to our community. So and the politics side of it, it's 60 years before we're going to know any of those answers anyhow. And who's going to remember to go look back and say, oh, Cal has 2 bathrooms at his house in 2020. So it really does make a difference for us. So thank you, Vice Mayor Lane, for sharing that and reminding us to talk about that. All right. Does anyone else have any questions for us? Yes.
Wastewater, you're talking about that. That's one of the most expensive things on my bill is for the wastewater. And it's all based on usage. Okay? How is it that, if I get what you said, there's communities here that have been built up after McCullough, obviously, that are not on that. They're not paying their fair share of the $5 million that you guys are getting. How did that happen, and why can't we change it? It would only make sense to have them pay their fair share and the rest of us get our bills lowered.
Yeah, so the question was going back to wastewater, and that's the sewer seems to be the largest charge on our water bills that we get each month. And there's some citizens that are not paying that sewer charge, and how did that come to be? So the reason that was there is the sewer was a vote of the people back in 2001? Yeah, 2001. And the voters said, hey, let's put in a sewer infrastructure. We were kind of forced by ADEQ, at the time, Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. It was suggesting maybe a building moratorium because of we were so close to the water and we had all these septic systems. And so the voters voted in favor of going out and doing municipal bonds. At the time, it was the largest municipal bonding in the country to put in a wastewater treatment system. As the system was going in, it started in around 2002-03, and it kept going. The economy had its episode in 2008 and 9, and at the time we were able to, people were losing their jobs and construction jobs dried up, and so we were able to speed up the process of the infrastructure installation at much less rates than were projected. And so the project came in well under budget, over $100 million under budget, and many years ahead of its schedule. But as part of that, some decisions were made. Although the entire community was supposed to get sewer infrastructure, the topography of some of the lots made it cost prohibitive to do so. where if we put them on a sewer, we would have to spend tens of thousands of dollars maybe for one lot to have a lift station and some things to adjust the flows, where it didn't make sense for all of the taxpayers. So those folks are not paying a sewer charge. That number is less than, it's a really small number. It's about 7% of the total.
But the total?
Yeah, the total. About 7% people are not. Now the IDD that we talked about is some of the discussions we're having. This is a way to make that more equitable for everybody. Is one of the mechanisms potentially.
Excuse me, if
Yes.
they're not using it, why should they pay for it? I mean, I'd love to have my bill lowered because I'm getting charged like 50% of my water goes into the sewer, the other 50% goes out into my yard and gets evaporated out of my swimming pool. But I'm still paying at the 100% rate of water usage for the sewer. I'd love to have my water bill lowered, but I don't want to get somebody charged for something they're not using. If they're still on a septic system and they can't be on there unless we've got to pay for $1 million pump to get one house on there, that's ridiculous, but they shouldn't have to pay for that either.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things we're doing, we talked about the IDD and that water wastewater rate study. We're about to go through a process right now. We'll be talking to you much more about this, other residents about this, as far as what that rate structure should look like. So we're going to develop some options, take it for the public, have council take a look at this and identify the best way that's the most consistent and equitable throughout the community for these types of charges. So, so in some cases, there's different meters you can put on we'll be discussing this, right? So landscape meters, things like that. So if you're filling up your pool, maybe you should be charged the sewer component tied to that, or if it's with watering the trees or those types of things. Those are options. So we're going to go through a water wastewater rate study. We're going to be looking at not only what it takes to maintain and improve our existing system, but how those rates are then charged to the users, to the residents.
I misunderstood because I thought you said that it was people that were using the system that aren't paying for it now.
So what the IDD is for the water, then there's so what your question right now is about wastewater. So the IDD is about the water, and we're talking about a district that was formed back in the 60s, I believe, right?
Yes.
With McCulloch. At the time, that was based on a boundary of where the houses were and where they thought the houses were going to be. Well, we've had some construction of homes that have been built outside of that district. Those folks aren't paying into the water side of it on the IDD. So look at your property tax bill. If you're living in the vicinity of this neighborhood right now, we're paying it. If you lived in a new house that's been constructed outside of that district, you don't have that IDD line item on your property tax bill that's used to go pay for water.
Yeah, Dave?
A lot going on.
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes.
For David Lane. David, on the census, will they have that phrase in the census that are you a citizen?
Well,
Yep.
Yeah,
it's
it's
on.
on.
I can't answer that question because it's going through the Supreme Court. So for us to know whether or not that question is going to be on the census at this point, we don't know. If the Supreme Court says yes, then it'll probably be on there. If the Supreme Court says no, then it won't be on there. But for us, we don't know the answer to that question yet at this time.
But they will have that decision before they send the census out?
Oh,
Yes, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
they're working at the speed of government, so let's see. I would certainly hope so. But, then I also thought maybe, this year when we paid our taxes, we would have tax conformity with our state taxes and our federal taxes, and that didn't happen either. So let's say, hopefully, it'll be settled by then. But, it is the Supreme Court, and they work at their own pace. So if they say yes, then yes. If they say no, then no.
Yeah, President Trump wants the question on there. So if Supreme Court says yes, then it'll be on there. Yes.
Would you give us an idea on some update on our HERF funds, and most specifically the repair on 95 and have the road at Havasu Riviera?
Sure. Yeah, so the question was an update on the HERF funds, an update on the road at Riviera, and some Highway 95 improvements. So we'll start first with the HERF funding, which is the Highway User Revenue Fund. It's given back to the city based on the gas taxes that we pay. again through the number of population that we have here. And right now it looks like HERF has been restored and is coming our way. But the legislature is down in Phoenix still. They're already past their 100-day benchmark, and there's no budget. And so everything's still on the table. But the intent is to keep the HERF funding at its levels. Do you have any? They were talking a little bit about even reallocating some additional monies. I don't know where that went.
Through the legislative process, as you're kind of indicating, who knows what's going to happen. Since the session started, they talked about reducing the HERF levels in the bill that would reduce HERF in Havasu. They talked about restoring to the existing levels that we have right now, or keeping it the same. And they also talked about some type of a process that would significantly increase the amount of HERF dollars. We're talking about HERF, we're talking about the dollars that we use for our roads, for road construction, for potholes, for all those things. So we've seen it from trying to take it all away, to keeping it the same, to significantly increasing it. Right now, I'll just keep it the same. We'd love to see more come in, but I think not at risk of losing what we have. We collect about $5.5 million from the state in HERF. By the way, because of our census numbers. So that number, 5.5 million, is directly tied to the population. So the state collects our gas tax, our registration vehicle tax, and then they send those monies back to the communities based on how many people check the box for their respective communities. So based on the allocation coming from the state, based on our population in Havasu, we get about $5.5 million. So tying those two conversations together is the allocation go up or our population go up, and that'll help us with additional dollars in the community. And
then on Riviera, the roadway is done. If you've driven by that area, you've seen it. It's still coned off, and you can't get into the area. The stoplight's in. Again, that is a public-private partnership. Public being like Havasu City. Our role was to put in the road and that infrastructure out to the future new state park development and this stoplight. We've fulfilled our obligations at this point. The other public entity is the Arizona State Parks, which has been working diligently with us to correct some of their issues out there. Governor Ducey fired the former Parks Director last fall, and that really put all of these agreements in limbo. And so they're looking through all of the agreements on how we can get them implemented. And the governor's office has been very interested in getting the Riviera project moving forward. The governor himself has given direction, and there's always a representative from the governor's office at every meeting about the project. So the governor is taking a very active role in getting these agreements to move forward. Jess and I have met with Bob Roscheid, who's the new Arizona State Parks Director, who is doing an amazing job and is going to do really good work for the state park system. So we're excited for that. But he's new, and he has a lot of these agreements up and down the river and throughout the state park system. But we are hopeful we'll have some answers next week from the state parks office on how their part of the agreement can move forward. Once State Parks comes on, then the private developer, Comic Enterprises, will be able to move forward. So really the hurdle right now is a hurdle between State Parks and the private developer that is causing an issue. They've been able to iron out one of their main sticking points. The second one is hopefully what we'll have the answer on next week. So that's the Riviera update. And I'm actually going to call Vice Mayor Lane up to talk about Highway 95 because he is much more versed on it than I am.
Had I known I was going to have a speaking part, I would have worn a suit and tie. It's Red Shirt Friday, so I have to wear my red shirt, right? And we have Vinny Gallegos, our MPO director, here with us today as well, and he's the one that is trying to come up with some additional funding for our Highway 95 and Kiowa projects. There's two separate phases there. The first phase is redoing the entire intersection of Kiowa and Highway 95. I live right there, and I drive through that every day. The asphalt is pretty much destroyed. They're back down to the base layer. It's probably one of the worst roads in the entire state as far as I'm concerned. The bids for that particular part of the project were open last week. Last week, correct, Vinny? Yeah, last week those bids were open. It came in over budget. I'm shocked. But it happens every time, right? So this project was supposed to be done already, but ADOT actually had some issues with the bid when it went out the first time. so they had to redo it. It's come in. Some of the additional overfunding is because we've asked them to make sure that they repave that section right there in front of the Circle K and the gas station right there. There's going to be a right-hand turn lane go in there, new signal light, new technology. So that part will be redone. The second part of that is all the way up by Staples. You guys see where people are turning left into the parking lot because they want to go to Starbucks or Hobby Lobby or whatever it is. And we're having a lot of traffic collisions there. And the last time I addressed the State Transportation Board, we'd had 28 crashes just since they put the Starbucks in at that particular location. So Vinny and I have both been addressing the state board, trying to get them to give us more state funds for this project because it's Highway 95. They're responsible for it. But they keep saying they don't have the money. So Vinny, through the MPO, is identifying funds so we can put a signal light up there right in front of Staples, so people can turn left and turn left out of that parking lot. Otherwise, you have to go down by the furniture store there to turn left onto Kiowa to come back out onto the highway. There will be an island eventually that goes up the center right there, which will stop those left turns into the parking lot and stop the left turns out of the parking lot. But all that does is move the problem from Highway 95 onto Kiowa, and we're aware of that. And so Vinny's working very diligently, trying to come up with funding to put in that signal light right there in front of Staples, and that will give people an ingress and egress out of that parking lot to make it much safer for the left-hand turns right there. So that's what's going on with it. We're working on it. It's something that we work on constantly. Vinny and I talk all the time about that particular project because it's near and dear to my heart, because I live right there behind Staples. So I drive that, and I had more teeth in my head before I started driving on that road. And a full head of hair, but it even knocks my hair out.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lane. Yes.
I have two things. Number one, on Thursday is the day that we happen to, where I live, to put our trash cans out, okay? And
We're neighbors. I do it on Thursday too.
Yeah. So what I find amazing is why the contracted street sweeper has to come and street sweep on the day when the trash cans are out. So he's going in and out, the street's not getting cleaned, okay? We're wearing out excess tires, all that kind of stuff. I would think the contract administration could just talk to the two people and say, gee, we know what days the trash cans are going out, go sweep somewhere else.
Yeah, no, great feedback. Yeah, thank you. We'll address that. That's actually, that's one of those like low-hanging fruit. You're like, oh, why didn't we think of that? So yeah, thank you very much.
The other thing is, I believe that one of the long-term things that we really need to be looking at is some sort of a high-tech water filtration system. With RO systems, when I think everybody's got an RO system here, for every gallon you get out of your spigot, okay, 3 gallons go down the drain in the filtration system. And with your water softener, it's about 10%, 10 to 15% of it goes down the drain through the back flushing. And then all of us who have swimming pools, every year, year and a half, every 2 years, you dump your pool. Okay? If we had clean water, we wouldn't have the RO systems, we wouldn't have the water softeners, and we wouldn't be dumping our water out of our pool. Okay? Not only would we be going easier on our wastewater system, but we'd be conserving the water that we're going to need down the road.
Thank you. The comment, and I'll just repeat some of it for the folks at home. The comment is about water filtration and increasing the water filtration using RO leads to water waste because of the amount of water that goes down the drain, and that we have to, anyone that has a pool might have to drain their pool every so often because of the quality of the water. And I'm going to throw that to you, Jess. We actually talked about it yesterday a little bit, so I know Jess is prepared for that.
Yeah, yes. I mean, what you're talking about is basically that RO process or that filtration process to occur at the city level as opposed to at the individual faucets. How much would you be willing to pay extra on your water bill per month to make that happen?
Yeah. I don't know.
So I mean that's the question. When I hear services, I hear improvements, and these are great ideas. But where my mind goes immediately is, okay, in order to make that happen, we need to do this, and those systems are very, very, very expensive. we're talking on the level of what a wastewater treatment plant would cost, upwards of tens of millions of dollars. So that's not something that we have with the revenues that we're collecting right now to be able to put something like that into place. But you're absolutely right. It's something that would be really, really nice. It would help the individual residents out a ton. We talk about water softeners. We talk about these types of processes that occur within our homes. Well, it's also impacting when the water goes to the wastewater treatment plant. We're very, very heavy with the salt content on the back end. So then we're releasing effluent water to the golf courses, and they're having a difficult time using that water to water the grass and the greens and all the fairways, which I never see when I golf. But so there's a lot tied to these things that would improve it. But it all takes some dollars and takes some planning. We're getting to the point now where we're able to kind of identify a plan moving forward. We're talking about a wastewater rate study. We're trying to get all these things in place so that we know what we're going to do in 5 years, and because of that, we can make some smart decisions moving forward. It's not a flip of the switch, I guess is what I'm trying to say, but it's a very expensive system.
But that's how these conversations start.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
thank you. Yes.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and keep on with that question. So how much would it cost for you to investigate and say, hey, I want clean water? How much, so you can find out how much it would cost the taxpayers, because when I use my water to wash my car, it's mud. I mean, pure and simple mud. I waste water all the time. The water issue is sooner or later it's going to bite us in the butt. They're going to sit there and say, we ain't going to get the water that we're supposed to be getting. In order to do what we need to do, we need to have clean water.
Sure,
so we don't waste the water. When I drain my pool and I put it down the sewer, and that's what I'm supposed to do, or at least that's what I thought I was supposed to do, I called up the city, and the city says, no, you run it down the street. Well, that's not saying if you run it down the sewer, you can reclaim it somewhere down the line. If you run it down the street, it goes off into a ditch.
Yeah, so the question here is a follow-up question to water, is how do we investigate how much one of those systems would cost for water filtration, and also how do we drain our water, and what's the most appropriate way when we're draining water from a pool? So we are doing it. City Manager Jessica Knudsen mentioned the water and wastewater study. That will identify it. We already know that the cost is in the 40 to 50 million range, but $10 million is a lot of money at top of variance, so this study will help identify some of those things. I do like to remind folks about our water quality. The water quality in Lake Havasu City, for those of us that have lived here a really long time, we used to have a manganese problem. You would turn on your faucets and we would have water that had a unique odor to it, but it also would be brown at times. And we used to drive our streets, and we would be having all of our fire hydrants open so that we could drain those out. You've noticed a lot of those things have changed. So I just like to remind people where we've been and where we're going, because we've done a lot of improvements to the quality of water and what we have here in Lake Havasu City. So we are doing that, and we're addressing it. Ideally, it's my understanding that to drain a pool would be to put it down the sewer so we can reclaim it, with a caveat that we call wastewater to let them know it's coming. So if you have a lot of water, but I'll let Jess clarify to make sure I'm not giving you that bad information.
Yeah, appreciate you contacting the city to ask that question. There's some days that that's the best route to go, and there's other days that it's not. We talked about earlier with road construction and all the weather, different weather events and the rains that we had over the winter. That impacts our wastewater. So we had to reach out and contact our users of our effluent and say, please take additional effluent off our hands right now. It's free, just take it, because our ponds are overflowing. There's a certain times where we want that water to go down the sewer system, so we can do what you indicated as far as reusing that water. And there's other times where we got too much. If you drove past the island, on the island, the ball field, the football field, and little league field that's out there, over about 5 weeks, we were just flooding that area with water, which is good for it. We have a lot of grass growing on it, but because we're trying to find ways to release that water, we just had too much. So please contact the city. Please ask those questions so that at that time we can respond depending on kind of where we're at. Sometimes we can take it in the sewer, and sometimes we can't. So.
Yeah.
I have a question
And
on
then we'll
the,
come to you,
Chuck's
Chuck,
been very
next.
patient,
Yeah.
on the pool. Is there any, I'm hearing rumors that pretty soon you won't be able to drain your pools. Is that in the pipeline?
No, that's not. There are some folks that, because of the drought contingency plan and some of those discussions about that's a multi-state agreement that actually President Trump signed just last month. The governor Ducey was championing it for the state of Arizona. It passed through the legislature. Then it went Senator Martha McSally. Was championing it in D.C. It made it through the whole process into President Trump's desk, and he signed it. But during those discussions, there were some thoughts that if the drought hit certain levels, that we wouldn't be able to drain our pools anymore, and you'd have to use kind of a recycled water system. There are some businesses that started up in that segment that obviously use some of those conversations to help sell that service, but it's not from a governmental agency. It's not on the table for us. But there are services that do allow you to do that that are private sector, and if that makes sense for your situation, we would encourage you to do that. Chuck.
Yeah, a few things.
Yes.
First thing on the citizen question on the census, I don't care whether it's on there or not. But if it undercounts, because it's going to cause people to not want to fill out their census in that, because you have legal residents here or illegal residents, we want everybody counted. That gets us more money in that. I'd like to see if the city has a program of going down and counting the homeless too. You know, because they're residents here basically. So I know a lot of cities are doing that to get more money, you know, back from the state. The second thing was on the narrowing of the streets that you were talking about, like Swanson and stuff like that. We control all our streets except for 95, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Why can't we put, and I know there's a lot of, I was a truck driver for years, and I put up with it, truck routes and non-truck routes, especially the ones on the narrow streets. You get trucks going down Acoma where those lanes were made from 1 to 2 lanes, and that gets really narrow. Swanson's going to be narrow, you're going to have the bike path there. Why can't we do some studies on where trucks cannot go unless they'll have them come from the north end of town, and they'll drive right straight through town instead of staying on 95 to get on the south end of town and stuff like that. You shouldn't be in this in-city area of the city unless it's the closest route to where you are delivering.
All right, yes, so
that's what we used to do when I was doing trucks.
yeah, there's two questions here. One was about the census and what the city is going to do to ensure everyone's counted, with a specific point that they don't care if the question about citizenship's on there or not. You know, the city doesn't have any role in if the question's going to be on there or not. But we certainly want every citizen counted.
Nonsense.
Yeah, everyone that's residing in Lake Havasu City, we want to be counted, and that's the message we're going to get out. And we will have a group of folks, as I mentioned earlier, that will champion certain segments of the community to ensure that everybody's counted fairly and accurately for our community. The second question was, as we're doing some of these roadway projects and narrowing some of the roads as traffic calming measures, what about instituting truck routes and things like that? And that's a great suggestion that we can look at and identify. We do have some commercial nodes that are up in residential areas. Most notably would be the Smith Center. It makes it very difficult to get up in that area, but we definitely can take a look at truck routes and with proper signage do that, and that's a great suggestion. So thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions? Yes?
Hi, I'm Christine, and I have a very explosive issue for you today. How many of you have ever heard of Tannerite exploding targets?
Oh, yeah.
They're really noise pollution, and I live on the BLM, and they go up there and explode a 4-pound one. It's called the Earth Shaker. And when they sell it, they sell earplugs to the user. But the listeners, we don't get them, and neither do our horses or our pets. So I'm asking our mayor, I have some information. for
Okay.
you. I'm asking our mayor to cut off the source. Why are we selling it in town if it's illegal to blow up on the BLM? working with Ranger Barry. He's ticketing people that are using it. It's a Class A misdemeanor. They have to go before a federal judge. They can get fined and even have jail time, officers. So it's a real concern. In the equestrian area, when I moved there 10 years ago, horses were riding all over. Now people are afraid to ride their horses in the desert. I want to reclaim the equestrian area and stop Tannerite.
All right. So for those watching at home, the comment was about tannerite, excuse me, which is an explosive material that folks are using out in the desert and BLM area, and it's rattling windows in homes around these areas that are located near the desert, and maybe looking for some council action to ban that. Not a question I can answer right now, but we'll talk with my colleagues on council and with city management and our partners at the federal government that own and control these lands, and see what we can do to maybe address it. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Yes.
Could you not just establish like a 3-mile buffer from the city limits for Tannerite?
Yeah, the suggestion was could maybe we'd do a distance, like a radius around the city in which to do. Again, we don't control any of those lands, so those would be partnerships and conversations we'd have to have with those people. But
It's against the law in the BLM. It can only be exploded on private land. You want them in your backyard?
yeah, so they're suggesting that it's against the federal law and they can only be done on private land, which is not happening today, which shows how compounding this issue is. So we really would have to work with those partners. But again, thanks for bringing it to our attention, and we'll take a look. Yes?
Can we touch base on the homeless population?
Sure. So I wanted to touch base on the homeless population. Anything specific on your mind?
Just what's the city doing about it? Because there's a rumor that the governor is going to approach all the mayors of the city and have them take some of the migrants that are coming into town.
There's
How do we do that?
there's okay. I'm gonna just there's a rumor that the governor is going to transplant homeless folks in our community.
He's going to approach the mayors in the cities in Arizona to take some of the migrants. So coming across the border.
Oh, I gotcha.
So
Okay. All right, so the question is about the homeless and what we're doing to address homelessness. It's actually, there's two fronts of homelessness. There's one is how do you take care of our most vulnerable citizens that don't have home and get them into a home? And so we are working with partners in the nonprofit and faith-based communities within Lake Havasu City to take care of those residents of ours to make sure that they have a roof over their head. So that's a separate effort. What are we doing then to prevent homeless from relocating here is a little bit trickier. The Supreme Court did weigh in and on this matter in, I believe, 2013 ruling, and it really restricts a lot of what cities and towns can do to restrict somebody from moving to the community. Obviously, we can't identify one population group and say you're not welcome in a community. But we do our best to get those folks to the services that they need that can help them continue on their pathway of life without living on the streets, if you will. So the rumor of the governor calling the mayors, he has not called me. And when he does call me, if he calls me about this issue, which I've heard nothing about this at all. I've heard nothing from our state delegation. I've heard nothing from the governor's office, and nothing from the governor himself about him being interested. It doesn't sound like based on what I know of Governor Ducey, it doesn't sound like a policy issue that he would be doing in that matter, calling any of the governors throughout the state. Or excuse me, any of the mayors throughout the state to do that. But if that were an issue, we would address it based on what the specific ask was. I can't really speculate on a rumor that I have no truth behind. So I hope that answers your question.
You know,
He's talking about silencing.
That's that hotel out in Desert Hills, it's been there for years.
Yeah.
Bad rumor.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other questions? Yes.
All right, so I got a question on the trash issues.
Okay.
So the paper put out a deal about a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, that, China doesn't want our trash anymore, you gotta wash this, and
Recycling.
And
Recyclables, not trash.
Okay.
Yeah.
First off, so a piece of trash, a can, is going to get what, a hundredth of a penny. How much water are you wasting when you actually wash the can? And so what's the purpose of having recycled material if you're going to spend money to do it?
Well, good for you. We have the general manager of Republic Services here with us, so Mr. Matt Cross will answer the questions on trash. So that's on.
It's on.
It's actually for the camera.
So just like you, Mr. Man, actually wearing my pit clothes. It's Friday and I turn 50 tomorrow, so this is
Oh,
happy
happy
birthday.
birthday.
Yes.
So let's make sure we funnel the question correctly. What you're asking about is recycling, not trash, correct?
Yes.
So here's what's going on. Let me give you a little background. Up till about a year and a half ago, China purchased about 40% of all the recyclables we collect in the United States due to contamination rates, meaning unrecyclable materials in your cans, and they were still buying it. If you haven't been to China, they got their own pollution problem. So their government said the first thing we gotta do to clean up our pollution problem is to quit buying America's trash, right? Because they were getting 20 to 30% of our trash in their recyclables that they needed. They needed the commodities. And so ultimately they put a ban on that. So what's happened is it's kind of flipped the whole recycling world upside down right now. Remember, recycling only works if a company like ours picks it up, processes it. When I mean process it, gets it ready for sale, cleans it up, gets the aluminum with the aluminum, the cardboard with the cardboard, the paper with the paper, and the plastic with the plastic. And then for that wheel to keep happening, somebody's got to purchase that commodity from us. And then they take that commodity and they repurpose it, melt it, do whatever they do to make a new product. Well, when no one's on the other side buying it, you can imagine what it does, right? When 40% of anybody's buyer goes away, it creates an economic problem. Supply and demand kicks in. So now aluminum, which you hit on, is not worth as much as it used to be. Plastic isn't worth as what it used to be. And cardboard. Cardboard is still worth a lot, because if you haven't noticed, especially in communities like this, we order a lot of things online and we need cardboard. Hence why we went to the bigger containers, because we need your cardboard. Paper is not worth much anymore. So let me kind of hit what you're saying is, Matt, you're saying we got to wash everything. No one in our industry is saying wash anything. What we're saying is empty it, clean it, and make sure it's dry. So when I have a soda bottle that's a quarter full of soda, and you throw that in a recycle bin, we put it on our truck, we compact it, because we want all the air out of everything, right? We want to move material, not air. Well, that soda gets all over your newspaper and gets all over your cardboard. So what happens is, by us not emptying something or making sure it's clean or it's dry, all the good work we're doing as far as paper and cardboard runs a risk of being contaminated. So then therefore it's going to get discarded throughout the process rather than repurposed and recycled like we all want it to. So really the thought process is empty, clean, and dry. Empty your water bottles. Make sure if you're going to try to recycle, and I say try, and I'm at the point to say don't, like a peanut butter jar, you're never going to get all that peanut butter out of there. Just throw that away, because it's only good to us if it's truly clean, and with the weather we have, that peanut butter is going to melt and get all over the nice cardboard or paper. So the push is to make sure it's clean, and it can be clean in many different ways. Don't put food waste. Don't put plastic food, microwavable containers that got spaghetti sauce in with your recyclables, because all it's going to do is contaminate all the hard work your whole neighborhood's doing. Remember, we're all in this together. So if I try to recycle right, or my neighbor does, and I don't, my problem just became his problem, and vice versa. So as a community, if we want to recycle, we want to put forth the effort, let me tell you, it's working. We got to make sure it's clean, and we got to continue to move with the markets, if that makes sense. What's recyclable 20 years ago is probably not recyclable today, and probably won't be recyclable in 2 to 3 years. Remember, it's only recyclable if somebody's willing to buy it on the backside. So that's my job, to make sure I educate everybody and to keep it clean and marketable. Here's the best advice I can give anybody. Pay attention to that label on your lid. It's that simple. Don't overthink the label. I see people put things like pool tarps in the recyclable. I cannot recyclable flexible plastic. So any plastic, like garbage bags, plastic grocery bags, flexible plastic that surrounds your case of water,
That's not recyclable. The bottle itself is, the container it is, but not the flexible plastics. And that's all changing. So all I say is pay attention to the label and don't outthink the label. Don't put the broom in there because it's got plastic bristles, wood, and then metal in the, no one's behind the scenes like taking a screw to it and separating it. So keep it as simple, and in the organic version you got in aluminum. We need all the aluminum. We need all the cardboard. We need all the clean plastic. Paper, it's still recyclable, but I used to get $95 for a pallet of paper. Now I get $5. So you can imagine the time, effort, and work we put into it to go get it for $5. So at this point, it's almost not recyclable, and you're going to start seeing some things like that. It still is physically recyclable, but the economics on the backside just don't work, if that makes sense. Great question, though. I hope what I said helps. Pay attention to the label. Don't outthink the label. Keep it simple. That's all I'm trying to say.
Do you guys have a question on recycling?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So you mean clean, just like rinse it out?
No, whatever it is, just empty, clean, and dry, because it's that liquid or whatever, the mayonnaise left in the mayonnaise jar, that's what's helping contaminate the food waste. We don't want that. So if you have to rinse it to get it clean, and your brain's saying, why am I using water to rinse this? Just throw it away and save your water, because there's a good chance it's not going to make it where it needs to be anyways if it's contaminated, if that makes sense.
Do you have a question on recycling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of boxes are made out of like would a pressed white paper rather than the brown ripple cardboard. Is that recyclable too, or is it only the brown corrugated cardboard we're talking about?
So there's what you don't realize is you asked a two-part question, and here's what that is. Yes, it's still recyclable, but the economics to get that product clean and back down to its base of what it is, which is paper, is to a point where it's not going to be recyclable because no one's willing to buy it once it's done being cleaned anyways on the backside. Corrugated cardboard, yes, very recyclable. We have a lot of it in this town, and we're seeing our volumes grow tremendously. So we want all your cardboard. Prior to us starting this new program, so about a year and a half ago, I felt like Lake Havasu Avenue, because everybody was like, what are you doing? You're changing it. And yes, change is tough. So I know what Lake Havasu Avenue feels like right now. But you can all know where we are today. We got a great program right now. We were recycling approximately 150 tons a month. We're upwards of 600 tons on our busy winter season, and we're averaging about 500 tons. So we've increased our recycling, which is keeping stuff out of the landfill, which is fantastic. But what we have to do is make sure what we are recycling is clean. Just because you put it in the magic blue lid does not, it's going away. Your problem went away. My problem's just begun. So what I'm asking is, please do your best to keep it clean. So to answer your question, yes, it is recyclable, but let's not spend our time worrying about that type of stuff. Let's make sure we get all the cardboard, all the aluminum, all the clear water bottles. Let's make sure we get all the stuff that really has value, and I can guarantee you will get recycled if it gets put in.
What about like a 12-pack from Diet Pepsi, the cardboard? No? Yes?
I like how she's doing the Diet Pepsi.
She's sponsored by Diet Pepsi.
Yes, but make sure it's clean. When you rip it open and it's dry and clean, heck yeah, put that in there.
I didn't know, because that's not corrugated, but I didn't know if it was the other kind. That's good.
Yeah, it still is, but let me tell you, today it is. Remember, there's a lot of processes and money spent on the backside to make sure it gets recyclable. Once that gets upside down, and it's not a capital market anymore, it's going to change the commodity price, which is going to change everything on the backside, if that makes sense.
So I got a couple follow-up. So can I get an additional trash can? Because my recyclables is going to be like maybe once a month, maybe even once every 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of bushes, trees, and I need to clean up. And it fills that thing up, and
No problem.
And it starts to get, and you guys don't pick it up. If we got an extra trash can out there or whatever,
You call us.
you get one of them things.
Yep. And so here's what we cannot pick up your personal cans, and here's why. Our new trucks, that hydraulic system will wreck your cans. You'll be like, hey, I just bought these cans, you need to pay them back. So we've had to make it clear. And people say, well, can't they just pick it up and throw it? That sits about right here. And let me tell you, if you do that a lot during the day, I run workman's comp injuries, and that's not what we want. Since we went to our new system, I've had 0 work comp, and I used to almost like lead the company in work comp in this area. So thank you, because this new system is working. To answer your question, yes. Call our number, tell them you want another can, we will drop it off to you, no problem whatsoever. I would rather have you more trash in a can, because it's easier, more efficient, and safer on our people, and our system's set up to pick it up out of the can. So don't put your own cans, call us, we'll bring you another can.
Okay.
Chuck, did you have a question about recycling?
Yeah,
Or?
the one thing on that too is the recycle of green waste in that. I worked for a company that they would turn the rock pits into landfills. And they had a thing out there that would take strictly yard waste in that, and they make mulch out of it. Is there any thought about that?
Yes and no. We already have a process in place that beats us to that without making mulch. And here's what it is. Your yard waste should go in your trash can, not your recycle bin. Completely different process, and I'll do my best to explain it quickly. At our landfill here that we also run, we have a permit where I have to cover every day when we put a layer of trash on there. I have to put 6 inches of dirt on top of the trash every single night, 6 inches. And then on the weekend, I got to cover it up with more because we're closed more than 24 hours. So ultimately, think about this. We're digging out a landfill, we're putting trash in it, and then we're putting dirt back on top of it. Because of our arid climate out here, meaning we don't have much water, we need moisture. Moisture helps with the breakdown, the biological breakdown of landfill. So we have a permit that allows us to use your green waste to cover the trash, which helps out with the whole decomposition of the whole landfill. So when you may not see this, but if a landscaper goes to landfill, we have a big, huge separate pile. We put all our green waste on it. When you put your bulky green waste in your trash, when it gets up there, we'll pull out the bulkiness and use it to cover, so it's not going to waste. It's helping the landfill do its natural process. So we want your green waste. Hence why if you got a lot of it, we're saying bundle it and set it next to it, just because then we're not in there digging the trash. Anytime we got to go in and dig in the trash, it gets dangerous. I mean, it's not like the most pleasant thing.
All right, I think another. I love the bill. Coffee with Matt. Coffee with Matt.
I started at 9.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, number one, is recycling mandatory? Do you have to have that blue can?
Hey, if you ask me, the answer is yes, because it saves our landfill, and landfills are really expensive. If you ask Matt,
Matt's going to tell you yes too, because it's the right thing to do. Is there police out there making sure you do or don't do it? No, and really if we have to do that, we've lost the foundation and the focus on why we need to do it. Remember, this is a beautiful community. We need to protect this landfill for its life, because a landfill is a finite use of space. I can't go to the BLM and say, oh, by the way, do you mind if I dig a new hole right next to it and start filling it up? And they're like, no, that's not how it works. It gets very expensive. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's mandatory. I'm going to say as citizens of this community and why we all live here, for the deserts and the lakes, we need to be recycling, but we need to be recycling properly. Do not wish recycle. And what that means is, you're throwing it in the blue bin, wishing it goes away. All it's doing is wrecking the system. Make sure what you put in there adheres to the label, and we guarantee it'll get recycled.
Yeah, can I speak to that? Because I think the point there too is recycling required. If you're not going to participate, just don't fill your recycle container with trash, because that ruins it for your entire neighborhood. All that gets now thrown away. So.
And the second question is, you're going to check, because you didn't have the answer to the last one. Shredded paper. Now you're saying paper is worth nothing, so do you still throw paper in the recycle bin?
So I get more questions about shredded paper than I do, I think, that in grocery bags. The paper itself, shredded paper, is recyclable. But like I said, it's becoming unrecyclable due to the economics and what's going on with paper on the backside, meaning it's just not worth anything. Here's the problem with shredded paper. We got wind out here, right? So if you just put shredded paper in your trash and we get wind, it can be tough to manage. But if you put it in a plastic bag, then it's going to the landfill, because plastic bags aren't recyclable. So if you're going to use shredded paper, put it like an old school brown bag and go ahead and put it in your recycle bin. It will get recycled. Just don't wrap it in a garbage bag, because then we're gonna pull it out because we see the plastic that's not recyclable. Does that make sense, what I just said? So if it is recyclable and you wanna contain it, put it into something else that's recyclable. Put it in a cardboard box. Put it in a cardboard box.
Yeah.
Yeah, put it in a paper bag.
Do you have a question about recycling?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, keep, we're wrapping up with Coffee with the Mayor, I love it, yeah. Starring, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep going.
3 very quick points. One, shredded paper in a paper grocery bag.
That'd
Yes?
be great.
Yes.
That'd be
Saying
fine.
yes.
Yes, in a paper grocery bag, yes.
Yes.
Paper bag.
Paper grocery.
Paper
Yes.
grocery
Paper.
bag.
Paper.
Plastic.
This, I get paper grocery.
Awesome. Plastic is bad news. I'm telling you, plastic bags
They
are
go
bad news.
look for them for me. Okay. Cardboard. Do you have to take the tape or anything off it?
Great question. The more you're willing to do, the higher the likely your stuff is going to be recycled, okay? Because I've got the little box that's wound in tape, and I'm like, really? There's more tape than cardboard. That's gonna get discarded throughout the process. So if you have time to take labels and tape off, holy smokes, we'll love you for it. And so will the environment.
Okay, third, real quick. I read somewheres, and I hope this is not true, that clamshell plastic, like you buy your baked goods in a clamshell clear plastic, they said no. I don't know why, but I'm asking you, yes or no?
They said, scares me, here's why. Because what is recycled in certain areas in the United States or even in Canada may not be recycled right here.
That's why I'm asking
Yep.
here.
Everything recyclable here works its way through Las Vegas. Our company owns the largest materials recycling facility on the whole West Coast. So, yes, as long as it's made out of number 1, 2, or 5 plastics. The world is heading, and we are going to be heading to 1s, 2s, and 5s. Look up on the internet what all that means, but if it's labeled with a 1, 2, and 5, it's definitely plastic.
So is that the only, are those the only numbers you want?
No,
Okay.
well, okay.
So complicated,
Are those the
isn't
only
it?
numbers
Yeah, I
you
know.
want? Yes. Are others recyclable? Yes. But when you get off spec of 1, 2s, and 5s, now we start running into food waste and other issues, if that makes sense.
I clean everything.
All right, we'll do this one last question on recycling, and then we're gonna wrap up.
Quickly, let's say I need another black lid container to put my yard waste in. If I call you and ask for it, do I get charged for the extra container? And if so, can I turn it back after I get it filled and delivered? I never.
So are you talking about just a one-time use or like all the time?
Well, that's just it. A one-time use, let's say I've got to, clean my yard up, it's full of yard waste. I want to recycle it separately or put it in a separate trash container. Call for an extra container, load the yard waste in that, leave my trash in the other one. Or am I expected to keep it all the time if I call for the second?
You're expected to bundle your yard waste. Whatever will fit in your trash can, no problem, put it in there. Anything on top of that, you're expected to bundle it. And it's on one of those green notices if you ever got one of those. Yeah, we're just asking, but it's bundled, tied up, no longer than 4 feet, and that just fits in the roof. We do not have a service set up for a one-time use residential. We do have bulky services set up. We will come to your house on a Tuesday or Thursday if you call in and tell us what you have. If it's bulky, we send a truck with 2 people out there and we'll pick that up. Right now, if you call me and ask for a second trash can, don't let anybody know, but you're not going to be charged for it. As soon as the city has their new software program in and they're ready to go, you will be charged for it. So read between those
Which is
lines.
launching on July 1. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
That launches on July 1.
One too many questions.
Yeah. All right, so with that, thank you, Matt. Very helpful for you to be here because we had a lot of questions last month on recycling, so thank you, and I'm glad we were able to get those out. We are now coming to the close. We always like to close with one, an announcement of where we're going to meet next, and 2, some fun facts. So where we're going to meet next is going to change just a little bit. We're going to meet on June 14th, which is 1 week later than June 7th, which would have been our normal first Friday. I have a commitment down in Phoenix representing the city that I have to be there all day, so I won't be able to be here on the 7th. But the 14th is when we're going to meet. We'll be dark in July, so it actually kind of works out good. So we'll meet in 45 days, and then we'll meet another 45 days in August. So it actually is working out. Our host is going to be Valerie over at the BLM. It's not a city-owned facility, but it's still a government-owned facility, so our taxpayers collectively pay for these services. Our goal of Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager is to rotate around to different governmental entities that we as taxpayers pay for to gain exposure as citizens of what's in our community and what it is that we're doing to serve you.
Where's that located?
BLM is located on Kiowa, Lakeside. So head out to Highway 95, turn left or right onto Kiowa, depending on what direction you're coming from. But it's Lakeside, and it's actually just a few doors.
It's the building behind Ashley Furniture.
Oh, behind Ashley Furniture. Yeah, it's not far at all. It's on the right-hand side if you're heading towards the lake. And it's a beautiful new facility they moved in about a year ago or so. Maybe 2 years. Time goes by so fast.
I moved in here.
You moved in here. Yeah, so it's been 2 or 3 years. It's a new-looking building. A couple of fast facts about the city. Let's see what we have. Lake Havasu City is the 4th most populated city that's not in Maricopa or Pima County. So we're behind Yuma is the 1st most populated, Flagstaff the 2nd, Casa Grande the 3rd, and then Lake Havasu City is the 4th outside of the general Maricopa and Pima area, which that's kind of a cool thing. The total arrests for 2018 into the PD, we'll focus a little on PD since we're here and we're going to take a tour in just a couple of minutes, was 3,343 that were booked into the jail and cite and release. So multiple folks. The total prisoners that were booked into the jail that is here at the campus is 2,091 total prisoners here at this facility. We have a 911 dispatch center is located in this facility, and I believe on the tour, if you take it, you'll be able to see it. State of the art, a great facility. But they handled approximately 60,000 police and fire calls for service in 2018 out of that center. So pretty amazing stuff. We have total bed space here. There's 53 beds in the jail, which I'm not sure if that's on the tour, but they'll show you around this facility. So with that, thank you for the opportunity to allow me to serve you as your mayor. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in June.